Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Parmjit Speak. So today actually is very special to me because today is my very first episode. So today's episode is talking about navigating the digital frontier, AI in project management. And I have a very special guest. So I want to welcome Ms. Tanya Boyd to the show. Just a little bit about Tanya. So Tanya, number one, she's very special to me. I followed Tanya on LinkedIn. I feel like a little bit of a stalker actually saying this. I've been following Tanya on LinkedIn for quite some time, and one of the things that always stood out to me about Tanya is her tagline in her name on her LinkedIn bio is creative project manager. And that was always interesting to me. That always stood out to me. So for that reason, I've always followed Tanya and just made sure that I kept up with her. Unfortunately, we have never gotten an opportunity to meet in person, but want to let you know. So Tanya is an outgoing president of PMI, the Baton Rouge chapter in Louisiana. A little bit more about Tanya. So Tanya has been a project manager for quite some time, has extensive knowledge in the project management field. And also, just a side note, she's also a photographer. So if you follow Tanya online and you've seen any of her photography, you will see that she is an incredible photographer. So there's so much more that I can say about Tanya, but I want to give Tanya an opportunity to introduce herself. So Tanya, why don't you speak to our audience and share more about who you are and what it is that you do?
I first off wanted to say thank you, for giving me this opportunity. And especially, thank you for having me as your first guest. I'm very proud of you. And I think that this is going to be awesome. So I have been a PMI member since 2014. I've been in different leadership roles on the PMI Baton Rouge board since it was the beginning of 2017. So I've done service as professional development, where I've been in charge of getting the speakers and helping to bring the content to the chapters. I've done the finances. And these past 2 years, I've operated as the president. So PMI as a whole means a lot to me. It has given me so much value in terms of friendship and like-minded professionals. That has helped me in the different jobs that I've had. It's helped me even in my communities and helping to spearhead goodwill and social good efforts. Um, so while president of Baton Rouge, I actually physically live about an hour and 40 minutes away in Lafayette, Louisiana. So as
Oh,
people mentioned, I'm near a lot of Cajun country, so the bayous, the swamps, and I enjoy photography there just because it gives me a different avenue to showcase my observation skills and eye for detail.
sure,
So.
absolutely. And I'm sure it's also the photography aspect. I'm sure it's also a great way to de-stress, right?
It is. It is. I mean, I may see alligators out there, but they generally stay in their own lanes. So, the swamps are just a very neat, serene environment. And I think that nature is the great connector for us all. And when we need a little bit of balance in our lives, just getting back out in nature and seeing our surroundings and connecting back to our base is a great thing.
No, absolutely. And I love that, especially because, so today we're talking about AI, we're talking about technology, and I feel, and I don't know, Tanya, if you agree with this, sometimes I get so overwhelmed with technology because I just feel right as project managers, a lot of us, we are on our laptops all day, 8 hours a day, if not more. And then,
Yeah,
we have our phones and we are constantly connected through technology, which is great. But I
right.
feel sometimes we need to detach. And I feel that maybe for you, the photography is a great way to detach.
It really is. So I've actually been doing a lot of it on my phone. I've got a Samsung Ultra or Samsung 22 Ultra, which has got a lot of technical capabilities. But even though I still have technology with me in the swamps, it's a different surrounding than being in your own home, working remotely, or being in the office and always being surrounded by people and having to keep up those interactions. And it gives me a different level of focus and just breathing the fresh air too a lot of times. So it is a great distressor.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And so I know I want to make sure that I'm covering AI, and so one of the questions I had, and Tony, as you know, AI is such a huge topic. It's so
Mm.
funny because I feel that I heard about Chat GPT and AI earlier this year, 2023, and here we are in the end of 2023, and I feel that again, AI is all the buzz, but I feel that everyone is now using AI, and when I know for me, when I initially mentioned Chat GPT to a few people that I knew, I'm thinking I have this new technology that no one knows about, yet all of my friends knew about
Everybody.
it. They all knew about it. So I
Right,
said,
right.
I must have been sleeping under a rock. But so thinking about AI and thinking about project management, in what ways, when you think about AI and again, you think about project management, in what ways do you think that AI is going to influence project management practices in the future?
I think that there's a lot of different areas that it can influence, and I've done a lot of reading, especially on the classic project management usages, like different forecasting or helping with different scenarios. And then, of course, and I think that this is a level that a lot of people can understand, not only Chat GPT and generative AI, but even stuff when you're on, let's just say, a Microsoft Teams meeting. And I've operated where I've taken a lot of notes, and it took me a while to realize that functionality exists in Teams now, that if you know to go generate the report afterwards, it will type out everything for you, and then you can just clean that up. I think I realized that this year, which it's a little outside of Chat GPT, but it's
Hmm.
still a usage of AI in project management that can help to speed things up. Other ways that I like to use it specifically for project management, I probably use it to help with my writing.
Hmm.
I help it to identify risks, and I use it for scenario-based questions. And this is probably a more creative application of it. But even if there's conflict within your teams and you as a manager want to know good ways to mitigate that, you can put in the description of what has happened and say, please give me ideas that are diplomatic to address this situation. And it might give you one or two, and you can always ask it again, please give me 25 different ideas, and it'll come back with more. So for me, I've actually found it to be an ally in the soft or power skills for recommendations and scenarios.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And so you mentioned an interesting point, and you said you've used AI for risk analysis or to create a
Yeah.
risks, right? So what are some questions? So for folks who haven't used AI for these types of things, me being one of them, what are some
Okay.
types of questions as a project manager that you would enter into, let's say, Chat GPT to come up with risks for your project or things that you may not have identified previously?
I think you can start it just kind of depending on your industry too, because the outputs that you're going to get are going to depend on, if you're in engineering, technology, governmental services, construction, different things of that nature. So you may want to put descriptions such as, I'm a project manager for a large construction company. We've got a $5 million contract. We have a lot of different suppliers that give us material. What are, let's just say, 30 risks that I may need to be aware of? So those descriptors, where you mention your industry too, and the more information you can feed it, the better. But even when you're first faced with asking it questions, just a basic knowledge, and then you can refine from there and have a conversation to whittle it down a little bit more to what you may need that works for the context of your project or situation.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And so there was I think you had talked a little bit about also the human element. So one thing that I think you and I have discussed before is we both thrive on human interaction. We thrive on transparency and communication with our stakeholders and our colleagues. And I think both of us love having that personal touch in project management,
Right.
and right, and we feel that it's so important. And so how do you strike a balance between leveraging AI for project efficiency, but still managing the human element in project management?
Well, there's a bit of a line. Like I have started using AI more this year, and it was probably the middle of the year because even when it first came out, it was like, what is this new thing? It was almost like everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. There was some reservations that I had about using it. So it probably wasn't until July, or I guess June or July, I started even testing it and trying it on my own. I find it extraordinarily useful for ideas, but much like how we operated before, it existed when we do a Google search. You
Hmm.
can't take those ideas and pass them off as your own. It's just like you're having conversations, like what our network provides with different
Right.
project managers, bouncing ideas off of one another, helping that light bulb go off in others and making it conversational. So I think striking the balance it's a good tool to use to come up with ideas, but then formulating your own opinions, doing research, and still having those human communications with people. So even though
Sure.
it gives us something that, people, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people that probably just copy and paste it and send and pass it off as this is 100% mine. I think as humans, we still need to communicate directly, not just through email. We need to go through the different communication channels and keep challenging that skill because while it's a great asset, we never want it to do our thinking for us.
Sure. No,
That's something we
absolutely.
need to refine.
Absolutely,
So,
and I couldn't agree more. And so it's funny as you're saying that I'm thinking back to so last night, as you know, so I'm the president of the PMI Southern Nevada chapter here in Las Vegas, and so last night we had a chapter meeting, and we had a great speaker, Dr. Prenza. And so anyway, one
love
of the
Tony. Yep.
right, and one of the things that was asked in the room was, do we think that AI is ever going to replace humans as project managers? Because I think there is that fear that
Right.
as a project manager, is my job secure in this field? So, so what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that AI is going to completely replace the need for project managers?
No, I don't. I don't think that it will be a complete replacement. However, I will acknowledge that it does present a risk. And I don't know whether this is right or not. Time will tell. A lot of times I look at the PMI studies by a certain amount of project managers will be needed by 2030. And of course, there is that fear and that curiosity of how advanced will this be by that point in time? I still absolutely think that there's going to be the need for human interaction because even if we watch what's happening lately, like I'll speak to my father. My father is in the boomer generation. I'm a Generation X. And a lot of times when we have to talk to an individual to get customer service, there's so much frustration because it's just a recording and it kind of shrinks us not to be able to talk to people or just go into a place because some of the businesses have fallen. So I think there's always going to be the need for humans. I think that there are risks to certain jobs, but like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I think one way to mitigate some of those risks is I think that most people will most likely need to start adopting some familiarity with how to operate within AI, new constraints. I think learning it, even if it's just the basics and not being so scared of it, is going to be a positive thing for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of project managers. But I definitely think it will never, rule out the need for human interaction and human thought, because there is the thing that the inputs that are put into AI is driven by humans.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
there might be misinformation, there might be bias, there might be all of the weirdness that exists with humans that are being fed into this. So you really need to research and check the outputs like you it would with any good project. Just kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself to make sure what you're communicating that comes out is respectful, is accurate, is good information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And I think it's so funny that, you mentioned your father who's the boomer and you being a Generation X. I will say I'm a millennial and I feel the exact same way. I mean, I can't tell you how frustrated I've gotten being on the phone talking to a machine, and having to select certain prompts when all I really want to do is speak to a human being.
Yes,
So again, I couldn't agree more. And so then also, talking about how PMI can be utilized to help, not just your projects, but just you and help you in day-to-day life. We are, again, as we mentioned, so you are the outgoing president of PMI Baton Rouge chapter. I'm the president of the PMI Southern Nevada chapter, and we have other chapter leaders who are going to be listening in, at least I hope, listening into this
yep.
podcast. And so, how do you think PMI as a chapter or PMI as a whole, how do you think that they can utilize AI for their chapter?
I can give you some examples of how I've actually utilized ChatGPT with you know, specific thought processes. So we had our professional development day was in August. And while we were pretty clear on our speakers and the theme, which the theme I had thought of, and this was something 2 years ago, was grow your worth.
Hmm.
And instead of like know your worth, I just thought, okay, you can grow it, you can know it, you can communicate your value, you can invest in yourself and get your own return on investment. So I was asking it, give me 50 ways that the theme of grow your worth is a good topic for professional development. And it spit out different lists. And so
Yeah.
with that, we were able to create some different marketing content. And so there's even different things. Like a lot of times when I do LinkedIn posts, I
Hmm.
know I'll have several ideas, but I don't always know how to assimilate them together. So sometimes I throw them out there
Yeah.
and it that with some different things. And so I've loved it for that, and even if you're like, how can I motivate my employees? How can I motivate my board members? What are good ways to recognize my community and make them feel welcome? And even in project management, you can ask it a lot of questions. Like one of the most fascinating usages that I did for it was I was going to be given a presentation for a project management centric
Hmm.
Bahamian community that
Okay.
Andrea Smith runs. And she had asked me to present on some of the differences with the certification. So I actually asked it, I told it kind of what my goal was. And I was like, can you give me 50 potential names for PowerPoint slides? Now, I haven't I've dabbled a little bit in Mid Journey and I've dabbled a little bit in Dolly with image generation,
Hmm.
but taking it to the full level where I get it to write a programming language in Visual Basic Studio. I'm still going to have to work on that a
Yeah.
bit. But it gave me some great names. And even when I say I like stuff like alliteration,
Uh-huh.
it knows and it understands. And if I don't like the results that it gives me, I can keep kind of querying it. And while Google used to be able to do some of that, I have to visit about 20 different sites in my research rather than having one comprehensive dialogue.
Sure. No,
So that helps me.
that's incredible because again, when you and I started discussing, again, AI and project management, I hadn't even thought to use AI, to, advance our chapter in
Mhm.
Las Vegas, or, that it could be used for that. So I just feel that AI is so useful in so many different areas. And yeah.
One thing I'm thinking of that I wanted to mention is even resumes. So being a chapter leader and having been connected in that for a long time, like a lot of people, consider that a source of in the know to different jobs, or they'll send me
Hmm.
resumes. And so I've never worked as a cybersecurity expert, but I had a friend that was looking and I could read on his resume that there weren't metrics, there wasn't KPIs, but I
Yeah.
asked him, I was like, you give me 5 different examples of resumes for a cybersecurity security engineer.
Hmm.
And it gave it to me. And so all I did was I shared the chat, to him and said, hey, take a look at this and how this formatted. Let me know what you think. And he was like, wow. And I was like, yeah, no, I didn't create that. I just asked AI as this certain role and it gave me additional ideas because before there's the job scan, there's the job analytics, there's looking at Indeed, there's looking at all of that and reading,
Hmm.
but you're pulling on all this vast information on how to distill other bullet points that might communicate 2 pages of what you do. And so I just thought, okay, Chat GPT is an additional resource that I can use for that.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, you're so innovative and your uses of AI. And I absolutely love it because again, you've given me a lot to think about and how I can use it again to help our chapter and for users who or audience members who are listening. I feel that they are also going to take away, at least I hope, a lot from your ideas on how to use it. And so something else that Tanya, that you and I had spoken about was ethical considerations. So,
Yes.
and using AI. So, what ethical considerations do you think project managers should be mindful of when they're, implementing or using AI in their projects?
I think there's a couple. I mean, the first most basic one would be don't just copy and paste. I mean, there's different AI systems, they're going to give you different results, but just like we had to operate, in old school days, it was write a paper on XYZ. Okay, well, great. You don't know all that information. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, you're going to go to books, you're going to go to the internet, you're going to go to all these various sources. And wait, while you may cite it differently now, you still have to pull in a lot of resources, distill it, be the mad scientist, experiment, and make it your own. So the copywriting is
Yeah.
one thing, and even like using Mid Journey or different things from images. I've seen photographers go, "This is mine," and I'm like, that doesn't feel authentic to me,
Yeah.
And then, of course, if in the world of software, I've heard, use cases of people feeding proprietary software code, and I'm like, no, no, because this is an open source system.
Right.
So if somebody does have the brand or trade secrets or different things of that nature, that doesn't need to be out in the wild, wild world. You don't
Yeah.
put it in there to give you all the code. I mean, I feel like it might be okay to do small snippets to where things couldn't be recognized, but that too, even the software, like that was never I'm not a programmer, so I wouldn't use it for that, but I know that that's probably one of the big ethical considerations. And then, of course, just when you're speaking ethically, like I said, I've read that there's some misinformation and that there's
Hmm.
people out there purposefully feeding opinionated things that may or may not be the actual truth
Sure.
and have some biases. So what it is outputting may not be accurate. So again, it's utilize several different sources, take the outputs with a grain of salt, cross-reference what you're reading, and know that it's not going to be 100% accurate. You still need to do your own thinking on your feet and research.
Sure. No, absolutely. And that's exactly why I think, right? So we talked about earlier, that is why I don't think AI is going to completely replace humans
Right.
or actual live project managers, because there's always going to be that need for human intervention, because
Right.
you will need to intervene and cross-reference the data that Chat GPT or AI is spitting out. So absolutely. So again, I have been using ChatGPT since earlier this year. I'm still brand new to it. I'm still very wet behind the ears, but I think this conversation I've gained a lot of knowledge from this conversation. And again, you've shared things with me that I would not have thought of otherwise. So that said, I just want to switch gears a little bit, not talking about AI. So
Okay.
where do you see yourself going in the future? I want to talk about you, Tanya, the human.
I really feel like I'm going to move off in some sort of creative direction. I mean, I feel like I had a friend tell me the other day, they're like, you have to be being creative or you're stifled. If you're
Yeah.
put in a box, you start trying to find ways to climb out the box. And that's really true. And that's
Yeah.
probably been very true about me ever since I was a little kid. I
Yeah.
still have that validated from my parents' friends that I know. They were like, "You were a willful little child." I was like,
Yeah.
"Still am." So creativity is important to me. Human connection is important to me. I always see myself operating in some form or fashion in project management, but I want to focus more on the inspiration, the
Sure.
motivation, and helping people out and relating to different people, continuing the conversation. So that's where I see myself going and hopefully having the opportunity to take a lot more pictures in the swamp. And if I travel more, taking pictures other places other than just the swamps and just seeing more of what's out there. And then
Sure.
with PMI, I mean, that's something that even though I'm transitioning to a past president role,
Hmm.
I'll still remain very connected with the Baton Rouge chapter and helping the new incoming leaders and helping PMI as an organization and, you know, just sharing ideas with my friends that I've made in that network. It's,
Absolutely. I love that. And I'm glad that you're still going to be engaged with the
oh yeah,
chapter, because I think the wealth of knowledge that you possess, and all of your experience with the chat, not just the chapter, but just as a project leader, I think is invaluable to anyone who has the
thank
good
you.
fortune of speaking to you and learning from you. So that said, I want to thank you again, Tanya, for agreeing to be on this podcast and being the very first guest. And so, as you know, this is a learning experience for me, because this is my very first podcast. So, um, I learned a lot of lessons today. So, uh,
I would love to hear if you are able to go and even research in AI great ideas for project management podcasts too, because I think that that could give some good ideas, and that I'll always be here and help you in any way and cheer on your success.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you so very much. You've always been extremely supportive, and I would like to extend the same to you. So again, thank you so very much, Tanya. I am so grateful to you, and I definitely would love to have you on another episode in the future, because again, I think your insights are invaluable. So thank you.
Thank you. I would love that.
Okay. Well, I hope everyone enjoys this podcast. And again, if you have any ideas of another podcast in the future, ideas of things that you would like us to touch on, please do shoot me a note or follow me on either follow me on LinkedIn or follow me on Instagram at Parmjit underscore speaks. So thank you again, everyone, and have an amazing day.
Thank you. Bye.